Hi everyone, welcome to today's cookbook conversation. I'm Lauren and I'm the editor of FOOD24. We are just waiting for Jan Braai to join us. And while we wait, I just wanted to let you all know, I don't know if you've had a look yet, but we have actually just recently launched a new kids section on FOOD24. So I'm really excited about interviewing Jan Braai today because he has, of course, launched two new cookbooks specifically aimed at kids. The one is My First Jan Braai, and the other is Jan Braai Jr. See, I thought I saw Jan here now. Let's try again. Cool. And while we wait, I just want to remind you all that you're welcome to drop your comments in the comment section below. You're also welcome to ask any questions. And if we have a chance, then I'm sure Jan Braai will be more than willing to answer them. We're just waiting for him to join us. For those people who are still joining, once again, I'm Lauren. I'm the editor. Oh, I see Jan is struggling to connect. If you can hear me, Jan, I have sent you a request. Let me see if there's... Sorry for this delay, guys. And we're live. Hi, Jan.
Yes, great.
Hi, sorry for that delay.
I think apologies. But it's a positive sign that Corona has been gone for so long. I couldn't remember how to do this anymore.
I know, it's like we have to remind ourselves how these remote things work.
Mm.
How are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. It's a beautiful day in Cape Town.
It is a beautiful day. It is Braai weather, I think.
It is.
Yes, and you would know, you're the experts.
Yeah, probably fish. Because this time of the year, all the yellowtails are arriving in Cape Town.
At
So
the store here, and I saw all the yellow there.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I was just telling our audience now, I am Lauren. I'm the editor of FOOD24, and today we are going to be chatting about your brand new cookbooks. Well, the one is a proper full-on cookbook, Jan Braai Jr., and the other one is introducing littlies to the concept of braai, and that is Jan Braai, My First Jan Braai, which is a little board book.
Yes.
So I think to kick us off, why don't you tell us what inspired you to create two braai books for kids?
It started off with my first Jan Braai book, so the board book. This year on 24 September, we celebrated National Braai Day for the 19th time. So next year is the 20th. So it's a significant year in the growth of this nation building project. So you have a whole new generation of people braaiing, and of course we're starting to come to a phase now where we've got adults braaiing who used to braai as kids with their parents.
Yeah.
And I thought it would be great if the next generation of South Africans, if they grow up with braai literature from the start. So the first idea was the cardboard book. And if you want to open some pages there so that people can see, and then it's just like single words on each page. I wrote the Afrikaans and the English. So every page has four words, or the same word in four languages: Afrikaans, English, Xhosa, and Zulu. And we had professional translators to help with the two vernacular languages. I wrote, of course, the Afrikaans and the English bits, and then there's some fun stuff at the bottom of each page. So that, you know, that kids can from the start learn Braai words. Why must we only do imported stuff when it comes to these single syllable, single word cardboard books? The toughest part of writing that book or the finished product is getting a cartoon version of me for the cover that everybody was happy with. Yeah, it's interesting how offended one is when people start drawing pictures of you. And eventually we settled on that little young Braai there.
Yeah.
And then junior, so obviously the next phase, because now if kids are going to start off with a cardboard book, junior is an actual recipe book. But I also say on the cover, it's sort of a guide as well, because you really want kids growing up to be able to braai properly. It has 22 recipes in it, everything that I consider to be the basics that you need to know how to do. And if that is the only braai book that you ever properly engage with and nail all of the recipes, you will still be a great braaier for the rest of your life, because then you're going to be able to do 22 things really properly on a braai. Stuff like the chicken potjie in there or the roaster cook. If you can do that, you'll never need another roaster cook recipe. You will for the rest of your life braai great roaster cook. And all of us will benefit out of this. All South Africans will benefit if everybody from a young age can braai properly, because we're all going to eat better. And obviously in a family setup, it's a great book because it yields proper results, as in nice meals that I think the whole family will enjoy. I was definitely budget conscious when choosing or simplifying ingredients. So the idea is that it shouldn't break the bank to go and shop for these recipes, and then it will keep your kids busy for an hour or three, and you're going to eat great food and they're going to learn something.
Yeah, I definitely noticed the budget friendliness, because I was having a look this morning. I kind of, on a Sunday or Monday, start thinking about what am I going to eat the week ahead. Yeah, and I have to say, when I had a look, I picked up some of my other recipe books and I was like, oh, I'm going to have to go to the shop and get this and that. And when I had a look at Jan Braai, because as I say, it is a perfect weather for braaiing, and I saw, yeah, a lot of recipes that use ingredients that I think most people have in their homes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think anything in that book that you don't have in your house or your home, you can buy it because you're going to use it regardless. There's nothing weird in there that you're now going to buy to do a single recipe and then the rest of the pack or the bottle will go stale in your cupboard.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that is an economic reality of society, is that we want to be. And I also see braaiing, we're not just competing with marathon camp sessions around the atmosphere for a full weekend. I see us as competing with TV dinners, with Uber Eats, with these ready packed boxes. You want to sort of, as far as possible, the first step should be lighting the fire, and then you open the recipe book and then you start cooking. And my idea is that an hour and a half later max, you should have food on the table. So it should be a weeknight thing as well, not just for special weekends.
Yeah, now as we're heading towards summer, I've definitely noticed that the sun's setting later. So I think there's definitely time after work to get out there, and it's such a fun family activity. Like my little one he's turning 1 tomorrow actually. So we've started with my first Jan Braai.
Yes.
Teaching him the
what's his favorite word?
He's a little bit, let's see. We've been focusing on this morning's word was ribs.
Oh,
because they look good. So I've been focusing on that with him this morning. But he hasn't yet had his ribs. But definitely the next step will be getting out there to actually start cooking from Jan Braai Junior. Yeah, and I was having a look at like the braai broodjie, because I thought he's going to have to learn what a braai broodjie is. And then I saw that you also have the marshmallow and chocolate braai broodjie, which looks flippin' delicious.
Yes,
have a look.
It is.
So we're definitely going to be doing that one as well. Yeah, but I wanted to ask you, what is your earliest memory of a braai?
Family families on Sundays. I was fortunate to, when growing up, both sets of grandparents were alive, and typically on Sundays we'd visit either my mother's parents or my father's parents and braai their boerewors, braaibroodjies, chops, and chicken pieces were typical staple items on the menu there. My first personal braai memory was not so much braaiing as making or attempting to make a fire. It was very smoky because I picked up little twigs and branches in the garden. And then I remember finding my father's diving mask in the garage, and I used the diving mask because I thought this would keep the smoke out of my eyes. It didn't work at all. So my first attempt at making a fire wasn't successful. These days I'm much better with that. So the two tips or advice on how to make a great fire is use a lot of dry wood. The more wood you use, the easier it is actually to make a fire. The less pieces you use, the more difficult. And then fire lighters, those white blocks of paraffin fueled stuff, it makes lighting fires easy. If you have any doubt whether your fire is big enough, it's too small. So that was my first, I think, attempt at making a fire. In terms of actual braaiing, we braaied two things a lot as little kids. The one was marshmallows on skewers, and I still think that is a great thing to get your kids to braai, because it teaches you all of the fundamentals, as in caramelizing the outside, getting the inside perfectly cooked. You want the inside of the marshmallow obviously puffy and soft before the outside is burnt black. So it's exactly the same when you're braaiing most pieces of meat. And so that was the one. And then the other one, stokbrood. So where you make rooster cooked dal and you cut it or roll it into strips and you wrap it around a stick. You can use a new or cleaned broomstick, or obviously a stick that you pick up in the garden or in the mountain. And then that we typically filled with butter and apricot jam, or sometimes with boerewors. So essentially then you're ending up with sort of a sausage roll, just a vastly superior version thereof. In terms of real recipes, the first thing that I think I nailed properly, I was 14 years old instead of 7. And then my mother taught me how to make lasagna. And to this day, I think I make a good lasagna. But that's now not braaiing. I actually do lasagnas now in a potjie on the fire. But that was the first proper recipe where, where you're making the bolognese sauce and you getting the pasta noodles ready and you're making a white sauce and you're assembling and baking it. Yeah.
Those are some great tips, because I grew up as well doing the marshmallows on the fire. And I just got my father's, he's got like a braai pit thing, and I was looking at it the other day and thinking I can't wait to introduce my kid to doing the marshmallows. But I never really equated that with making, doing meat or anything else on the fire. And I think I'm very, I'm one of those people who like the oven's so much easier because you put it, you have all your settings and everything's very, it's very methodical. And I think when you're working on a fire, it's like so many, it makes me a bit nervous. It's like there's so many different elements. So I never thought about it before that. It's the same, as you said, doing the marshmallow over the fire. It's the same principles, like caramelization and getting the inside perfectly cooked. So those are great lessons that we don't even realize that we were learning as children. I also wanted to know, you've given some general tips there, but what other tips do you have for parents who are maybe introducing their kids to the idea of outdoor cooking? Maybe you're on a family camping holiday, so around not just grilling over the fire, but also in terms of safety and that sort of thing. If because I think some people they love the idea of introducing their kids to the South African concept of braai, but I think you're a little bit like weary of having your child out there with an open fire. So what are some of the tips and advice you can give to parents who are watching us now?
So on Cape Talk, on Braai Day, they had some medical or fire safety or somebody long. It was an interesting interview on the topic of fire safety, and they put a hard and fast 12 years old on it. They asked me about it later on a different interview. I don't agree with that. this is impossible to say. I think you know when your kids are intelligent enough, and different kids work in different ways. Like maybe one knows how to use a knife because for whatever reason they've been using knives and their parents or elders have taught them how to responsibly use a knife. And another kid will injure themselves with a butter knife. Another one is aware of the fact that if you touch a hot pan or a grid on a fire, or don't stick your hand into the coals, somebody else might not be aware thereof. But it only takes once your hand into the coals to know it for the rest of your life. That's how most people actually learn it, including myself, is you touch a grid with that little ring that closes the hinge grid, and then you know to never do this again. And some people learn that lesson at 20 or 30 years old. So, yeah, I don't think to be able to braai and use the book, you need to be able to perform every step thereof. Maybe if you know that the kid under your supervision will struggle with a specific step, like chopping an onion, then you can do that for them. But they can still wear leather gloves and turn the grid on the fire. I think it's by 12, most kids have been taught how to use matches and lighters, and even if it's just lighting candles at the dinner table, or I mean, candles on a birthday cake. Kids that are 1 or 2 years old are already doing candles on birthday cakes. So I think there's no hard and fast, but I think it's entirely safe. It's a healthy outdoor activity. It's actually cooking food by yourself and learning where the ingredients come from. So, yeah, I think parents should do it. There are obviously stuff like unstable braai that's high up might fall onto something, or fire pits. Then don't play like hide and seek right next to the fire pit. But this is all logical stuff. And fortunately, most people these days are intelligent to understand that at a young age, because the evolution theory means that all of us, like our ancestors, figured these things out. And that's why genetically we are here.
Interesting theory that I have not actually heard before. And then what are some of your favorite recipes from Jan Braai Jr.? I know you spoke about the Braai.
Yeah, I think that I love all of them. It's obviously like, if they weren't my favorites, then I shouldn't have put them in the latest book that I wrote. Otherwise, that would be completely stupid to put a recipe in a book that you don't like. But if I can highlight two, the first one is roaster cook, where I think I'm a better roaster cook maker for having written this book, because I don't think a kid that is 6 years old or whatever that has the muscle power and the raw watts in their biceps to knead dal properly, as I explain it, say, in my previous adult book. So how are you going to get them to assemble great dal without the power in their arms to knead it, as I always did with roaster cook? Now, the way you do that is you hydrate more. So relative to the flour, you're going to add more water, and then you can just stir it with a spoon or even with your hand until it comes together, and then leave it for an hour to rise. Now you've got a more hydrated roaster cook, and then you just add a lot of flour to the top and bottom, which makes it super pretty, like a Portuguese roll. And that means that it still doesn't sink into or get stuck to the grid. And I think this roaster cook recipe is better than my adult book roaster cook recipe. So obviously the next time I publish an adult book, I will use this recipe because it's easier, and I think you're getting a better roaster cook. So that one, and I also think to be able to bake bread like that on the coals of a wooden fire is a super cool skill that you're going to have for the rest of your life. And the quantities of all of my recipes, adult books and kids books, but especially this book, it's so simple that you're going to remember how to do this for the rest of your life. Then the other one is potjie, which we all love potjie, but I think it's something that intimidates a lot of people. And again, I wanted to think, how can I simplify making a great, it doesn't help with saying, yeah, now you can make a potjie, but it's super average. I wanted to be a great potjie that if your kids make it, you genuinely enjoy eating it, and you want to serve it to guests for Christmas or for a wedding. Like this should be good enough to be served at special occasions. And I really think that potjie, the result thereof, is that good, and you're going to nail it in 90 minutes. And for the rest of your life, if you then progress and start getting confidence and making all sorts of different potjies, wonderful. But if you never make another potjie for the rest of your life, and you are always the person who makes that chicken potjie great, then yeah, you're still going to eat awesome chicken potjies for the rest of your life. Then the lamb chops, I think there's been a trend, a gradual drift, and now it's reached a pandemic stage where lamb chops are always cut thicker and thicker. And it's something I don't agree with. I think lamb chops should be cut thinner. So that is a great lamb chop recipe for predominantly the reason that the lamb chops are nice and thin. So steak, you're going to obviously do steak in various ways, thin for prego or super thick or whatever. But I think we should get back to braaing our lamb chops. So rather eat more chops, but thinner ones than these super thick ones. Because lamb meat and lamb fat fundamentally, it's not so much fun when it's raw. Raw beef, wonderful, like steak tartare. Raw lamb, not so much. So that you touched upon the braai broodjies. Braai broodjie is such a great fun meal, and there's never any leftovers. If there is, it's a great snack the next day or later that day. Yeah, the two burgers, the chicken burger and the steak roll burger. It's all fun food. The lamb rib, the pork ribs. So it's a common misnamed item is spare ribs. The rib that kids like to eat, the neat one, is baby back ribs. So that's basically the crux of that recipe, is when you go to the butcher, ask for baby back, not for spare ribs. That's the neat little ones.
Yeah.
And then chicken wings, you want them crisp, you want them cooked to the bone. You want, when you eat the chicken wing, that the meat comes off the bone. It's not still stuck to the bone. But if you're going to cook chicken wings to that level where it's that cooked, then very frequently that sweet and sticky sauces that chicken wings taste great with, they're already over caramelized, as in burnt black. So now you've got something burnt that comes off the bone, or you've got something that's not burnt, but it's a little bit too raw next to the bone and not coming off cleanly. So how do we fix that problem? We add the sweet and sticky sauce and the chicken wings to a pot. This can be a normal pot on your stove. And then we simmer for 20 or 30 minutes until the chicken wings completely cook through, super tender, coming off the bone. And then we just braai for 5 to 10 minutes on very high heat to caramelize the skin and, of course, the sugars in the sauce. And then you have a fundamentally superior chicken wing to anything that you've ever had before in your life. So, yeah, as I mentioned with the roasted cook, it's in each recipe, when you start thinking, how do we make this easy for kids, then frequently it forces you to think out of the box and actually ending up with a better result than you had in the first place.
Yeah. I cannot wait to try your tip for chicken wings, because I love chicken wings. I've tried them a few times, and yeah, it's always either undercooked, like right at the, when you get to the bony part, then it's all picked, or it's burnt on the outside, like you say.
Yeah.
I mind so much if I get a little bit of that burnt flavor, but yeah, I can never get it spot on. So I'm definitely going to be trying that trick with the chicken.
First the pot, then the braai.
Yes, definitely. And then the last question from my side is just, how do you hope that Jan Braai Jr. and my first Jan Braai will encourage more families to bond around an open fire?
Yeah, I think it's inevitable. It will be a consequence of the book, I hope, and I'm pretty sure. And more than that, I think we're going to create a generation of South Africans who all actually, or where a large chunk of them will understand how to braai properly. I do think that parents are generally in a positive mind space when they're braaiing. It means you relax, you're at home, you're outdoor, you're having a good time. So I also think that for kids, parents at a braai is a better version of a parent. It's not the one behind the laptop or stressed on their way to work. So I think if kids could choose which version of their parents they want to be with, they will also frequently say the ones who just lit the fire and are starting to prepare the braai food. And I think that is also something that parents can focus on, is be that version of a parent that your kid actually finds pleasant to be around. So there, I think, and I say this because over the years, I've found frequently in shops or malls or whatever, when members of the public would recognize me and speak to me, that little kids were particularly excited to meet me. And as I'm not a sports star, it didn't initially make sense to me. Why would they idolize, or whatever the non-arrogant word for it is, me? And I thought about it a lot, and that is my current conclusion. Is it because they identify not so much with me, but they see me as a conduit to the version of their parents that are actually fun. I'm the adult doing what they also want their parents to be doing. So I think, yeah, spending time together as a family around the braai, obviously a wonderful thing. The fire is the ancient place of gathering in Africa, and it should stay that way for our generation and generations to come. And I hope that these two books play their part. I think my first Young Braai book is obviously timeless, and it's a great thing. It's also a great present, right, for friends and family that are having little kids. And I think it's nice to read, South African content with your kids. It shouldn't all be Peppa Pig. It can also be Young Braai.
I agree. Thank you so much, Jan. That was really informative. And as I said, I can't wait to get stuck into these myself. And then, yes, just a reminder to everybody that we've just recently started. I don't know if you know this, Jan Braai, but we have just recently started a kids section on FOOD24. And we're covering all sorts of things from if you're just starting your baby on solids to healthy lunch boxes and eating healthily just before the exams. And maybe we'll even cover some braai tips for our new generation of braaiers. I think our audience would love to see that on there. So thank you to everybody for joining us. And yeah, have a great afternoon. Is there anything else that you wanted to add from your side, Jan Braai? Anything that we didn't cover?
No, I think you prepared well with your questions. Thank you very much. And thank you for the opportunity to speak with you and all the FOOD24 family.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jan Braai. Have a good afternoon, everybody.
Too.
Yes. Have a good afternoon. We'll see you for the next one. Bye.
All right.